So this is a method where you can run multiple programs on an Arduino. So I'm just using flashing lights here, but you can really run anything. And the idea here is that you don't need any external interface electronics. Every time you start up the Arduino, it's going to run a different program. And so you can run as many programs as you want as long as you're not using up all your memory. And you can even have a randomization where every time you unplug the Arduino and turn it back on, it does something different than it did the last time it was on. And so for example, here when I hit reset, it's going to run only the red lights. And then if I hit the reset again, it's going to run all the lights together. And then if I hit the reset one more time, it's going to run only the blue lights. And if I hit it once more, we're back to our first program, which is only the red lights. And so it'll just keep cycling through these. I could unplug it, reset it, whatever, and it's always going to start up with a new program, one of the three that I've written. So how is this done? Let's look at the code. So I'm actually going to start with the end of the code, which are the functions I'm using. So the functions are the easiest way to just sort of separate out the different things you want to happen. So I've got one function here just called all blue, in which I'm counting up, starting at 2 and just using only the even pins. And so starting at 2 and then I'm counting count equals count plus 2 on every loop, just doing 2, 4, 6, making those high. Short delay, and then doing the same thing with another for loop, but just making those same pins low and then having a short delay. And so that's the blue lights only, and it's just going to run forever doing that. Okay, and then the next one down, and you'll see why it runs forever here in just a second. This next one down here is all red, and so it's the same thing except I'm just starting my count at 3 and then just going every other light. So I'm doing 3, 5, 7 and just making the odd lights turn on. Since I have a total of 6 LEDs, I've got 3 red, 3 blue. And then I just have a slightly longer delay so I can just see the difference there. And then finally, the last one, I'm turning on every light and then every light off. This time just incrementing each count by 1 so that I'm turning all the lights on and then all the lights off. So those are my 3 functions. Again, these could be anything. Here's the secret magic that allows you to start a different program each time. So you use the electronically erasable read-only memory, the EEPROM. So you're going to have to include that library, and that's a library that comes with Arduino, so you don't have to download it and install it. Then we've got 2 integers here, one called stored and one called address. These could be called anything. Those are just easy to remember titles for them. I've got my serial.begin so I can communicate between the Arduino and the computer, just to be sure that I'm getting the numbers I think I'm getting. And then here we've got a loop that's setting all of our pins as outputs. So just starting with pin 2, ending with pin 7, count plus plus, making them all outputs. And then here's the part of the program that's going to allow us to store and retrieve the EEPROM number. So I've got my variable called stored. And so that's going to be equal to whatever stored in EEPROM address. So address up here is 0. So whatever stored in pin 0 or in location 0 is going to be retrieved, represented by the word stored. And then we're going to print that number just so we are sure it is what we think it is. So the first time around that should be a 0, right? Because we said address is equal to 0. And then we increment that number. So now it's going to be equal to a 1. If stored is greater than 2, set it back to 0. Well, it's not. So then we're going to just write back to the EEPROM. So our main commands here are the read and the write. So we're writing back to the EEPROM, again back to address 0, and we're putting whatever stored is this time 1. Now we're going down to the main program, and if stored is equal to 0, we're going to run only the blue. So that's our function all blue. If it's stored is equal to 1, we're going to run the all red. That's our all red function. And then we have another function called every light if stored is equal to 2. So this time around it's going to run the all red. But when I hit the reset button, now it's bringing up a 1 here. So then it's going to, the second time around, when it runs the setup again, we're going to increment stored. Now stored is equal to 2. Well, it's not greater than 2, so we're not going to set it back to 0. So we write 2 back to stored, and then we go down. This time it's going to run program every light because our stored number is 2. Then we shut it off again. This time when it starts up, we increment stored to 3. Now 3 is greater than 2, so we set it back to 0. And this time, and then we store 0 in the EEPROM, and this time we're going to run the all blue. So you can see how it's going to cycle through each of the 3 every time we turn it on and turn it back off. And finally, there you have it. All red, started over, all the lights, started over, all blue.